when is the resume going to die? In my opinion, it should have been dead already. The LinkedIn profile should be your resume. And I think we should start the movement where the resume is dead, hashtag, because it's got to go.
I want to welcome you to my sales podcast, where we have one focus and one focus only. That is helping you, the sales community, and sales leaders create more conversations with more qualified buyers, ultimately leading to improving your sales productivity and closing more deals. Each show, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you find, engage, and connect with more buyers. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., and you're now listening to the Selling with Social Sales Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the AAISP Annual Leadership Summit, where the sales community comes together to learn, share, and network. Join us this April 16th through the 18th in Chicago. Visit www.aa-isp.org and click Leadership Summit 2019. And to save 30% off your registration, use the code VENGRESSO 30%. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Selling with Social. And I've got with me my boy, Amir Reiter, CEO and founder of Cloudtask. And I'm actually super excited to be spending some time with him. We're going to talk a lot about growth and scaling SDR, AE teams. And actually, Cloudtask, we've been watching them from afar. They've been doing an amazing job at scaling their own organization. And actually, Amir, I have a little secret to tell you, my friend. And that secret is I want to be like you.
I think we want to be like each other, which is what keeps pushing us, I think,
I'll take that, brother. I'll take that. Well, Amir, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to have you here with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. So do us a favor. I introduced you, obviously, here as the CEO of Cloudtask. Yeah. And just for our listeners, we've got sales folks, we've got sales leaders, we've got marketing leaders, and we've got business owners listening in. Do me a favor, just spend some time talking about who you are and your background.
Yeah, 100%. So I was a small business owner at a very early age. I started a company at 23, and I've been an entrepreneur since then. At 30, I had a small exit of a company I owned, and I decided to get a little bit of corporate experience. Worked for a surgical robotic company, which was interesting. I was planning brain and spine surgery. So it was a little bit different for me. And then I worked for a company called NetSuite, which is an ERP that I also had run a company on. And, I stayed in the corporate world for about 3 or 4 years. And then I just had that itch to make my life a lot more complicated and a lot more stressful than it was. So I was very relaxed and happy. And
I know what you mean.
Yeah, just really wanted to provide a way for leaders like myself and leaders like yourself, the ability to focus on their product and service without having to really be in the business of people and their careers and constantly training and teaching, and decided to go full steam with Cloudtask, which is a BPO, business process outsourcing, for mainly SaaS companies that are looking to go from 5 to 100 million. That's kind of the name that we're carving for ourselves, and just really wanted to make it easier for companies to, invest more in their product and service, because as you know, it's competitive, right? And that's what, leaders should be focusing on.
Yeah, love it. So, interesting, actually, you actually spent time from device medical sales, your own company, as you mentioned, as a solutions consultant, which was the pre-sales world, a partner channel, I think it was HubSpot, if I'm not mistaken, and a little bit of time at Drift, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And then all of a sudden, you go and start your own thing, and you've built this very successful, amazing organization, Cloudtask, and you've got a ton of people in your organization now, and you've scaled this in a fairly short period of time, like over the last almost 4 years, right?
About 3, yeah, getting close to 3.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I wanted to invite Amir to the podcast was because obviously when you start out, you and I both agree, you start out with one person. That's you.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you might have a couple founders, right? And I don't know if that's the case in your scenario, but it is in mine. I was one of a few. but then you all of a sudden you just start adding and scaling. And now how many employees are you up to now?
Oh, we're about 135, but we're hiring about 10 people a week.
Yeah, that's amazing. So the scaling of your B2B sales team, the customer success team, the support team. I mean, these are things that I feel for our audience who's listening in that, quite frankly, we'll be able to learn a lot from Amir and what he's doing, because not only is he doing it for his organization, but technically all of these individuals that you're bringing on, since you're a managed workforce provider, you're bringing it on for other clients.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So we've got some good stuff to talk about here today on the show and Selling with Social. But before we get deep dive into some of this content, man, I got to know one thing. Tell me something juicy. I want something juicy, something nobody would know by looking at your social profiles.
Oof, Mario, that's a tough one. I would say one thing that people would not be able to tell from my social profiles that at one point I spent 13 nights in jail in Japan.
Whoa. Wait. Hold on. You spent 13 nights, 1-3?
1-3. This was right before going full speed with Cloudtask. The dream of Cloudtask might not have ever happened.
This is a good one. 13 nights in jail, and you were in Japan, you said?
In Japan, yeah. Interestingly enough, this was for a common prescription that was in my name in the bottle from CVS, and apparently it was illegal in Japan, and they threw me in jail, and could have been 3 months to 3 years, and I was spending my nights writing SLAs, which are service level agreements, for those who don't know, for Cloudtask. So I was still focusing on the dream at the same time, but that is something that nobody could tell from my profile. Random fact about me.
That's a good one. So I haven't had jail time on the show yet. You're the first jailbird.
I was released, so clearly innocent, right?
Well, yeah. This was a prescription drug that you had, and apparently whatever it was here in the U.S., which I could only imagine, we prescribe more things that are illegal in other countries, and this is not a political view or statement, but we prescribe more things than other countries accept. So basically, you entered into the country. Was this right off the airplane?
Right off the airplane. I hadn't slept for 36 hours. I was watching Man in the High Castle, which was a show on Amazon Prime, which was about this theoretical world where Germany and Japan won World War II, and there were so many interrogation scenes between Japanese army and the civilians, and I felt like I was just thrown into that situation where I was basically signing documents I couldn't read with my fingerprints, and it was very interesting, a very interesting time.
Wow. And obviously they were inspecting your materials and baggage and all that stuff. How long were you supposed to be there in Japan?
Well, the trip was actually supposed to be Japan for a week, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Australia. So that got ruined. And my poor brother who came with me, the trip was ruined for him. But I luckily did the right thing as a little brother, and I took care of all his expenses because I felt bad for stopping that trip.
Well, I mean, that's not your fault.
No, but it's my older brother.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, okay. So I guess after you got out, did you head on to Australia?
No. They said, "Where do you want to go now?" And I said, "Right to the airport." And I got onto a plane and I went right back home because I learned my lesson.
You were done.
Done. Yeah.
So note to self: don't carry prescription drugs.
Yep. Don't do it.
Or make sure they're not illegal
in Japan,
in other countries. Yeah. Man, I didn't even realize. Now, I've actually seen something like that happen before, where someone gets stopped, for a prescription drug, whether it's amoxicillin, codeine, any of those types of things. And I had no idea what they had, but they had their doctor's note, they had all the material, and they were like, "Sorry, this is absolutely unacceptable and illegal." And I was shocked. I personally, it never happened to me. But all right, we got a new one on the show then for Selling with Social. I love that. All right, well, let's get into some conversation here. Earlier, I mentioned to the listeners that you've scaled the company here, and your vision started while you were in jail. So I guess Cloudtask, as you said, may not have ever happened.
Yeah, might have never happened. Exactly.
Had you not gone to jail. So I guess the good news is you went to jail, and now you started Cloudtask as a result of it.
100%. Yeah.
It made you think. But you've been scaling up the organization. You guys are bringing on 10 new folks a week, and I really feel like there's a lot of organizations that are in hyper growth mode. And if I were to just think about processes that you need to ensure success as you grow and scale an organization, and there's lots of whether you're a marketing leader that's trying to bring on an inbound sales development team or business development team, or you're bringing on an outbound SDR team or an inside sales organization or even a field sales team, and you're scaling that up rapidly to address a certain marketplace. I know there's processes. To talk a little bit about some of the processes you believe that an organization and a leader needs in order to be able to ensure success.
Before I get into that, I'd like to say this is a perfect timing for this conversation because this is the first time where I've actually left the sales department and I have full confidence in their ability to support our future customers better than I do. And
nice.
Back to the question about, what processes, I think it's less about even what process, it's about having a process, right? I think what I see is that a lot of companies, large and small, startup and publicly traded, lack a process, right? They don't have it drawn down. So I think one of the big things is not looking for that perfect process, but knowing that you have to have a process, right, to scale. And that process is going to change. But if you don't have it written down, you're not going to be able to change it. And one of the things that we did early on that was a smart investment was we spent a lot of money on this. It was $9.99 a month for Lucid Charts. And I advise everybody to spend money on Lucid Charts and start drawing some processes. And that was the basis, I think, from where we grew, and our processes have evolved since then. But it was having one in the first place that really allowed us to grow.
And talk a little bit about the processes. So it makes sense. In order to scale, you got to have a process. I'm getting ready to scale an organization, a sales team. If you were to say, here are the top, 2, 3, 5, 10 things that you need in that document, what would that look like?
I think it's a beginning and an end, right? The end is a happy customer that you help. And the beginning is a buyer persona and a buyer profile. And with those 2 points, you're able to fill in the middle because the middle changes, but there's 2 things that'll always stay constant and they'll evolve, right? Who your buyer persona is and who your buyer profile will evolve. But those are the 2 starting points that I would advise everybody. Really sit down and say, who am I helping? What do they look like from an organizational perspective? And then within that company, who are the personas I'm helping? And then at the end of the process, you have your happy customer, right? And then from that point on, it's complex. We can talk about it. I can get a little granular if you want to.
Yeah. Give me a couple things that you'd have in the middle.
Yeah. So it depends what organization you are, right? Are you investing in digital marketing first, or are you investing in outbound? Or you're doing both at the same time? Because you're going to have, I look at sales almost as if it's, if you take a look back at any big river, there's a lot of little rivers that flow into it, right? And that river is your process and the little rivers are your channels. So really identifying, what are your inbound channels if you have any? Are you getting Facebook leads, LinkedIn leads? Are you getting people who are downloading MQLs? Something as simple as somebody commenting on a LinkedIn post or sharing it, that could be a sign of interest, right?
Of course.
So identifying what that looks like when people are already aware of you, right? Because you don't know whether or not they're in consideration with your service or ready to buy. You do, depending on the ads that you put out there. And then at the same time, identifying a process for strangers, right? Because with outbound sales, with the sales process, a lot of the times you're going to be reaching out to people who have never heard of you, right? So there's 2 real starting points where it's strangers, which is a pure outbound, and then people who have heard about you a little bit. And then from that point, you're going to actually map your content, right? What is the content I have as an organization? What am I going to give to somebody that I know is ready to buy, considering to buy, or just became aware of me, right? And with that, it's easy to work backwards because everything's a channel, right? And we talk about Omni-Channel, phones, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook. These are all channels. They keep growing. The persona stays the same. The messaging stays the same. The channel might change, but as long as you're getting that message to the person, and it's not perfect, right? You might send a case study to somebody who's just become aware of you. It's not about getting it perfect, but really trying to pay attention to where the potential customer is and not what your agenda is a big step. And then from that, you can tweak that process based on results. It's a science experiment, right? Mario, as you know, sales is science now, right? You have a hypothesis, you got to guess, you test it, you measure it, and you make changes. But those 2 starting points will allow you to make those changes in the process.
when you say those two you mean the starting point and the end point?
Yeah, the customer is the goal and the buyer persona. Everything else in the middle can be modified, changed, and the results can be measured, right?
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So have a plan, document the plan, make sure that you've got a process to ensure success, starting with, do you know who your buyer persona is? And end it with, how are you going to make them happy?
100%. Yeah. And then set SMART goals, right? Realistic goals. And it's hard for people to set SMART goals in the beginning because you don't have any data, right? So whenever you're setting your first set of goals, make them achievable, beatable, right? You can always change goals, but having a goal is very important, right? I want to lose 10 pounds, right? So I'm going to go to the gym. It's a goal, right? It's the same thing with sales. I want to make 25 qualified meetings, and of those 25 qualified meetings, I expect X to go into a demo and then X amount to buy, right? And it's an initial guess.
And that's kind of sales 101 though, right? I mean, like everybody always starts out with a goal, and that goal is designed to hit the company goals. And then hopefully it's designed to support your personal goals as well in terms of monetarily. So as you have scaled Cloudtask from 1 to 135, you said?
Yep.
With 10 new a week, you're obviously hiring, it's a managed workforce service. You're obviously hiring new sales reps.
All the time.
And when I sat in the seat for hiring sales folks, I always told salespeople that there's two things they get to choose when they are looking to change jobs, careers, companies. Number one, they get to choose who they work for. And they get to choose, number two, what company they work for. And so my guidance was choose wisely, right? Choose wisely. And so I want to talk about the reverse now, which is, what is it that you're looking for as you're hiring new sales reps and you're scaling this fast? How do you sift through all of those that are worth something and maybe those that are not?
Well, the way that I recruit is actually different than the way, our HR team recruits in a few different ways, right? Firstly, we do group assessments, which is a really good opportunity to see people who could step up. We pass the ball around and people speak. And it's a good time to see how people interact, right? So we have group assessments, and we also have individual one-on-ones. And one of the things that everybody has different preferences, right? So for me, the resume is not important. For our team, right, because they might not have that sixth sense that I think I might have, the resume is important. So they're looking at resumes. We also use a personality technology called human intelligence that allows us to actually build the profile of successful sales reps. And then we give people these personality tests and we see the matching. That's kind of how we do it at Cloudtask. But me personally, I have a little bit of a hack. I ask people to send me a WhatsApp message, and I can tell in somebody's voice a lot about their energy and their enthusiasm. And I like to personally hire people based on their aptitude to learn and their energy versus their resume, but that's a preference style. And I try to kind of teach my team how to do that with at the same time having a scalable process.
Yeah. So the point of sending a WhatsApp message is, if they don't know whether or not they have the aptitude to learn or the desire to push themselves outside of the comfort zone. Is that the idea?
It totally is. I have people respond back to me saying, I'm not sure what to send you in the voice note. And right off the bat, that for me is, somebody who's, hey, Amir, love your company, really excited to learn X, Y, Z. You can just really hear enthusiasm in a voice. You can hear the difference between somebody who's like, I have to have a job because I have to pay bills. Yeah. Versus somebody who's like, I have been checking you guys out and I love your company culture and I want to be part of it, right? So, I think it's a quick first filter, especially for someone like myself that's really busy, right? And I don't have the time to go through these resumes. So there's different methods for different people. And, if you have the freedom and you have the luxury to go through a slower process, by all means, but I like to hear people's energy right away. That's just me.
Vengresso will once again be joining the AAISP and hundreds of sales leaders in Chicago for the 11th annual AAISP Leadership Summit. And we want you to be there with us. Sales leaders from around the globe will come together for a learning experience unlike any other. Attendees will find pre-event workshops, large and small group learning, a technology expo, as well as the annual Inside Sales Awards Gala. Join us in Chicago on April 16th through the 18th. And for all of our listeners, visit www.aa-isp.org. Go to the Leadership Summit 2019, and to save 30% off your registration, use the code VENGRESSO 30% sign. That's Vengresso 30%. What you're saying is when you're hiring new sales folks, you're looking for the passion, you're looking for the aptitude to learn, you're looking for the drive, right? Which are, I think, generally all things that we try to look for. How do you tell that? I mean, other than the gut, like I think most of us rely on gut. You talk to somebody, you're like, do they have it or do they not? And you make that gut feeling. Like, is there any science behind the measurement there?
No, that's a good point. So I think it's a combination of gut and science. So with that personality exam, we're able to start matching up some science to it.
Yeah.
And then with that feeling, I think you're able to say, hey, Danny, Danny's just somebody, we have a few Dannys here. I had a good gut feeling about this guy. I want you to speak to them, right? So I don't think it's ever a first touch hire off the gut feeling, but it will initiate that this person is somebody that we should consider, right?
Okay. So definitely use, then I think what you're saying is use tools like, I think you called it human intelligence. Is that what you called it?
Human intelligence, yeah. It's an amazing tool.
Is that a free tool or is that
to be very transparent, we're actually part of their sales team as well. They've been lucky enough to give it to us, which is great. The more we learn, the more we can sell it. So they're teammates of ours, and it's a paid tool. But options out there, there's a website called 16 Personalities. Yeah, it's also a quick way to give people personality exams. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So make sure that you've got a assessment that assesses personality to make sure that it aligns to the, I guess, personality you're looking for from a salesperson.
Yes.
And so does that require you then to, as you scale up and you've started adding on all these salespeople, does that require you and your sales leadership team to be of the same mind of what that ideal sales profile looks like?
Well, I say no, because I think that when you're putting people through an interview process, I think it's good to get different perspectives. If everybody's kind of looking and sensing the same things, then someone will be maybe more blocked to see a red flag, right? So I think it's good to have people who see different perspectives. Like my co-founder, my CEO, a lone American, he's a resume guy, right? Very detailed, how long have they been in the previous job? So I think letting people have their style is helpful, right? Because then it gives a different perspective as a candidate moves through that journey from, identifying them to giving them an offer letter.
Yeah, I gotcha. You know what I've always found in scaling sales organizations is I'm not a big fan of the resume either. In fact, I'd rather look at your LinkedIn profile to determine whether or not you're a good fit.
That's
and here's the reason why. Because what I'm looking for is, do you understand that today's modern buyer has changed the game on us? Because if you understand that, then your LinkedIn profile won't just read as a resume. It'll actually read as a resource to your, at that point, your current buyer, right? And more specifically, I will be able to see through your activity that your engagement is leading you to developing an omni-channel approach to prospecting, meaning that you're leveraging LinkedIn, that you're leveraging the call, you're leveraging events, you're leveraging email, that you may be engaging through video. And that's really like, to me, the resume is like, all right, well, great. I probably can already see that from your LinkedIn profile, but maybe there's a few tidbits and points that I might be able to glean that I wouldn't glean inside of your LinkedIn profile, though that everything should be there, especially for past experiences. But really that LinkedIn profile, and I can make real fast assessments based upon, do you understand today's modern buyer has changed the game or do you not? The other thing that we used to do as well is very similar to you, is the group assessments. And so with our final candidates, we would bring in final candidates and we would have, whether it be 1 to 3, depending on who they were, 1 to 3 final candidates. And we'd bring them in and we'd say, all right, you've got a week to prepare. Next week, we're booking out group meetings. You've got 30 minutes and 30 minutes only. That's it. 30 minutes and 30 minutes only. Everybody got the same exact set of instructions. And you've got 3 slides. And what I want to talk about is why you, why the company, and talk about our product portfolio, right? Those are the 3 slides that you would have to present. And it's 100% on you. You download, you research, you get the information, you figure it out, you present, and you come in front of everybody and you showcase who you are, what you've got to deliver. And you may not have it right, but did you deliver a flawless presentation that sells yourself, that read the messaging off the website, which is a cardinal attribute of today's seller, that they have to go out and they have to look at an organization's website and then turn around and figure out what is that core messaging and how does my portfolio fit into helping achieve that core messaging, right? Can they do that? And then the service portfolio, did you understand enough? I mean, like, let's face it. I mean, I don't care if you're crossing over from cybersecurity to insurance. Within 90 days, you can easily ramp up with all the acronyms. All you have to do is look at a couple pages of the website and you can pretty much figure out what those key acronyms are. Like, do you understand the key acronyms that are happening or that are being used inside of our industry and our space?
Yeah.
Because if you can demonstrate those 3 things, then you come out the winner. And the best part was, here was the best part. We always told people 30 minutes. We never told them that we were going to cut them off. We said, you have 30 minutes and 30 minutes only. That's all we would tell them. And at 29 minutes and 59 seconds, we'd wait for that next 1 second, and I don't care if they were in the middle of their presentation. We'd say, thank you so much, your time is up. Because as a salesperson, we have to recognize and manage to the time. If I ask an executive for 30 minutes worth of time, I better figure out how to deliver within that 30-minute time slot, right?
Yeah.
So that was a methodology that we use, and it sounds very similar in this group assessments that you guys do something similar as well.
No, we do, and I'm sure we have a lot to learn from each other. So I might send you a recording of a group assessment for some pointers after this.
That's good.
To bring this back, when is the resume going to die? In my opinion, it should have been dead already. The LinkedIn profile should be your resume, and it almost reminds me of like how we're still using passports when we could be using our cell phones. Right? Like, I'm out of stamps in my passport. I have to fill new ones in. I'm like, why is this not on my phone anymore? So I think we should start the movement where the resume is dead, because it's got to go.
I love it. So hashtag get rid of hashtag resume. No resumes. Hashtag
Everyone's
no
saying
resume.
the phones are dead, right? They're not dead. Resumes are dead. That I can stand by.
I'm with you on the resume thing. I'm totally with you on the resume. In fact, our last 7 hires is with no resume.
Yeah.
No resume. They're pointless. Absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
Absolutely pointless to get a resume. And when people ask for a resume, it's like, oh, I'm dealing with a dinosaur. That's what I'm dealing with.
What's your take on college education? It's a must.
Great question. So my take on college education is that it's totally worthless and no value.
I agree.
With a but. The but is that all things being equal, when you and somebody with a degree and everything is equal, when you're going for that position, they're going to take the one with the college degree in most cases. And so that is the but. And I say that coming from somebody who went 5 years to UC Berkeley, Cal, and I got a job in my second year doing software sales and started making 6 figures a year later. And I thought, why am I even here? What's the point? Then I decided to leave after 5 years, and I had a boss. His name was Chris. And about 3 years after managing me, he forced me to go back to school and complete my degree. He actually put it into my review, and I wouldn't pass my review, the succession planning review for that year unless I went back and finished and completed my degree. And I thought it was a really bad call. I was really irritated, was really highly upset, but the company paid for it. And at the end of the day, all things being equal, that's the only reason for the degree, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I like your analogy of comparing 2 people with a similar resume, but one has a college experience, and that could be the kicker. So I want to add something to that. What happens if all is equal and somebody has demonstrated on the World Wide Web that they're doing webinars, podcasts? Is that person going to beat somebody who's also their equals? Where's the value in that now?
That they're doing webinars, they're doing podcasts, those types of things?
Who would you take? Somebody with a college degree or somebody who had a better social presence?
Oh, for me and for our line of business, it would definitely be social all the way, right? Like, but the question is, it's with the but again, and it's with the social presence, but can you prove that you know how to convert that? Now, likely if you're sitting there and all things are equal, then you've already proven it because you've already hit quota and you've achieved, right? And so that is the but. And assuming that caveat, then all day long, I want somebody who understands how to leverage the omni-channel approach, which includes social and video.
Yeah.
All right, we totally digress. That was hiring.
Good
that
topic,
was resumes.
Good topic.
A hashtag no resumes. That's going to be one of the headings for this episode. Hashtag no resumes. All right. So talk a little bit about, you've onboarded all these folks, or organizations are looking to onboard. Top tips for training new salespeople. Give me some.
So I think the top tips are really mixing up your curriculum with not just book work and exams, right? There's a lot of LMSs out there. You can use HubSpot, and HubSpot has amazing courses, right? But I think one of the biggest tips is getting people hands-on early, right? And by hands-on, I mean getting them to send those connections on LinkedIn, to do research, to pick up the phone, right? And really mix book training with actual practice training, I think is really important. And, I think back to my medical device days, and that's kind of where, I learned that, because in surgical robotics, there was not much room for error, right? And I remember day one was a test right away, which I failed miserably. And then next thing you knew, we were in the hospital drilling into spines and cadavers, right? So just hands-on, class and hands-on, and it's a good mix. So I think that for me is important.
Get them in early, get them activated early.
Yeah, teach the material, then test the material hands-on, and teach more material, and test that material. Don't just give people a bunch of material to learn, give them an exam, and expect somebody who gets a 90% on a test to have those skills, right? Because there's two different things you're learning. It's people who are putting it into practice and people who are book smart, right? And kind of want both.
How long is an onboarding process for you guys?
Well, that's a great question. We're getting them to hit the phones about in 2 weeks, which is really quick. And then up to full ramp before 90 days. 90 days is the maximum amount. We're seeing people hit peak performance at a halfway point. We give them about 90 days until they should be ramped up.
Wow, that's a very short and small ramp up time. I mean, generally
we're in the business of sales, so we have to beat the average.
Yeah. Well, I mean, generally most ramp up periods for the average salesperson ranges in between 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
Right. I'm surprised that you've been able to get that down. Congratulations. That's really great. With all of this new hire the new hire program that you're going through, and as companies scale and they ramp up a big giant crowd of new SDRs, BDRs, AEs, inside sales, whatever it is might be, oftentimes I see trends that happen related to churn, right? Because you bring on this onslaught of people. In your guys' case, it's 10 a week. My gosh. I mean, like, how do you not get lost in the shuffle? How do you reduce churn for the sales folks that are coming in? And your top reps, I'm going to apply that to your top reps, because sometimes you apply all your attention to the new baby and you forget about your teenagers. So talk a little bit about reducing churn.
So that's a good point. I think we have a lot of layers of management and coaches that are in constant communication with the reps. Every rep has a customer success manager that they work with for the behalf of our clients. And one of the things that we implemented recently that has really improved is a quick Google form survey. 4 questions on it: a week 1, a week 2, a week 3, a month 1, and a month 2, asking our employees, how do you feel about the training? What could we improve? Are you comfortable with the organization you're working with? Do you feel comfortable telling them that you don't agree with something, right? And I think communication early on has been a real key success on lowering churn, because when you're asking your new reps how they feel, what they're thinking, sales is hard, right? So I think they know that they're in an environment where we're here to make them professionals. We're not just here to get numbers, if that makes sense. And that's been a big thing. Those little surveys has been a little trick for us that has been working. And then at that same time, having forward momentum where you're actually investing in training, sharing blogs with them. We have Slack channel where we're constantly sharing really good tidbits, and having that culture of learning never stops, I think is a good way of reducing churn. Because if you're just hiring people where it's like your job is just to make 25 qualified meetings, you're going to either get that or you're going to get churn.
On the survey, that's interesting. You're giving me a great idea here that I
please do it.
Thought about. You said it was monthly or weekly?
So we do week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, which is month 1, and then month 2, month 3. And then we are quarterly. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Now, who gets that and who takes action on it? Because the data is only, this is what we found, especially working for a large organization. As a large organization, the data would be sent out. They do a half yearly survey to the employees. And every time I put something for 14 years in this case, 10 years that I worked for a company, 4 as part of the startup company that they had funded. For the 10 years I worked for the corporation, not one time did anyone ever reach back out to me as it pertained to my comment, my suggestion, my change that I had recommended. So in my mind, in most corporations, they're completely worthless. But if you've got the executive team that's reading these things, like do you or who is it that's assigned in your organization to read them one by one and then turn around and take action on them?
Such a good question. So our hierarchy from a customer, I am actually the VP of Customer Success because that position is open. And the Director of Customer Success would be one underneath me, and then a Senior Customer Success Manager, followed by a CX Manager. So it's first read by a CX Manager, then rolled up to the Senior, and then rolled up to the Director. We're really at a point where we're really paying attention really closely to our employees. And I think we have an advantage by being in the business of people. So I think it's we have that unfair advantage where our service, our product is the happiness of our employees. It is the education of them. So we're able to pay close attention because that is vital information for us. And I think one of the things that you learn as a company is, can you keep that as you grow, right? So I think we already have it in our mind of saying, okay, this is what got us from 0 to 100 employees. What will get us from 100 to 1,000 is different. And being very mindful of how things will change as you grow, and knowing that you kind of always have this line curve that goes up and down where it's like too much granular, too little, right? And kind of always trying to find that equilibrium. So I think having a conscious effort of knowing that you're going to have to adapt has been keeping us on. But, we're not a software company. We're not a program. So it is one of the challenges of the people companies. It's scaling with quality. And it's definitely something that I never stop thinking about.
Yeah. One of my favorite books that I read when being promoted into first line management was a book by Marshall Goldsmith. And it was What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Just read it.
And it is a phenomenal book. And I don't care if you're going from director to VP to CRO, or whatever it might be, the role or the title, or even if it's not in sales and you're talking about marketing, you're talking about, facilities, accounting, whatever it might be. Marshall does an amazing job at bringing this to life and helping people to understand that all the things that you thought got you there, it's not the things that's going to keep you there, right? So you got to start thinking differently about that. And for all the leaders out there listening in, I mean, if you haven't picked up that book from Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, we'll put it into the show notes, and I encourage you to go ahead and grab hold of that book. Listen, Amir, it's been phenomenal having you here on the show. If someone wants to get a hold of you, are you on Twitter? Is it on LinkedIn?
I'm on Instagram, Amir Reiter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. You can message. I'm on the channel. You can message me and get a response on almost all channels. And then obviously, of course, Cloudtask.com, right? That's the given.
Cloudtask.com. So if you're looking for him, it's AMIR, last name Reiter, REITER, and we will make sure we put his profile and his Twitter handle in the show notes. And Amir, what's your Twitter handle?
Oh, it's Amir Reiter. I'm a very simple person.
Very easy to remember.
I go with my first and last name. Easy to find.
I love it. So if you do reach out to Amir and you do connect with him on LinkedIn, please make sure you send a personalized connection request message and tell my boy here that you heard him on Selling with Social. Make sure you connect with him. He provides a lot of great content, some great video content that these guys do as a managed workforce provider, helping sales teams really expand and sell more for an organization. So love that. I have one final question for you, my man, and that is all-time favorite movie. What is it?
Well, it's kind of cheesy, but I think it's Forrest Gump. It just touched my heart at the right age, at the right moment. That's my favorite all-time movie.
Don't stop running, right?
Yeah, don't stop. Never stop.
There it is, Forrest Gump. For all of you listening in right now, I want to thank Amir for joining us. And for all of you, do not change that channel. Listen to this important message right now. Hey, thanks for listening to the Selling with Social Sales podcast. Did you enjoy that show? If so, would you do me a huge favor and give the Selling with Social podcast a rating and review on iTunes? That would be super awesome. Also, if you want to easily find our show, just go to vengresso.com. That's VENGRESO.com and click on podcast. From there, you'll find the Selling with Social podcast. Thanks for listening in. And until the next show, be awesome. Mario Martinez Jr. out. Don't forget to check out the AAISP's 11th Annual Sales Leadership Summit in Chicago, April 16th through the 18th. Visit aa-isp.org. Click Leadership Summit 2019 and use the code VENGRESO 30%.